Exposed. 3 shocking vegetables to avoid after 60 and 3 incredible ones to transform your health. As Alice stood in her dimly lit attic, the musty smell of old boxes filled her nostrils. Her hands trembled as she opened a dust-covered trunk, revealing the faded family cookbook that had once been the heart of her home. A wave of nostalgia crashed over her, but along with it came a ghostly reminder of the solitude she'd struggled with since her husband's passing. Alone in the sprawling silence of their small Midwestern town, she felt the heavy weight of her memories pressing down on her, choking the air from her lungs. She had lost not just a husband, but connections, something deeper. The cookbook was more than a collection of recipes. It was a time capsule, each yellowing page echoing laughter and family dinners she desperately craved once more. Yet the thought of her estranged son, Michael, sent a jolt of anxiety through her. She had long since noticed the growing disconnection between them, a chasm opened by unspoken words and unmet expectations. "Can I do this?" she whispered to herself, fear threading through her thoughts like a tangle of vines. Could she pull off a dinner, cook something worthy enough to bridge that emotional distance? If only she could prove, at least in this small way, that she still had value as a mother. Determined, she made the call to her neighbor, Evelyn, who had once been a nutritionist. "Alice, there are things you need to know about your diet, especially with what is considered healthy at your age," she said over the phone, each word igniting Alice's tension. "Let us look at what you can transform. Invigorate your cooking once more." The excitement rang hollow, her mind racing with doubts. Just the thought of stepping into the kitchen to prepare a meal that Michael would enjoy felt like an insurmountable task. What if she'd lost her touch? What if she couldn't live up to his standards, or worse, his disappointment in her fed one more night of resentment? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Alice diced vegetables alongside Evelyn, shadows of fear crept in, tightening around her chest. Evelyn's voice faded into the background as Alice learned the shocking downsides of asparagus and beets, staples in her culinary repertoire. The thrill of learning was outweighed by the creeping dread that she was being tasked with a monumental challenge just as the night of the dinner drew near. "What will I cook?" echoed through her mind, accompanied by the haunting specter of her son's piercing gaze, searching for a flaw, a failure. Days passed in waves of panic, any semblance of serenity washed away by the flood of uncertainty. Time ticked incessantly louder, amplifying her anxiety as the dinner loomed just hours away. She peppered the air with herbs and spices meant to soothe, yet failed to quiet the clamor of emotions raging within. The table was set, dishes prepared with care, yet the anticipated joy felt increasingly overshadowed by despair. As Michael entered the room, her heart raced. Would he see the meal as an olive branch or evidence of her incompetency? The ambient sense filled with warmth contrasted sharply with the apprehension knotting her stomach tighter. Was she ready for this confrontation, this reckoning? The first bite would be the moment of truth, a silent dance of bitter memories and hopeful wishes. But the air was thick not just with the aroma of her cooking, but with unuttered fears, poised on the brink of explosion. Then, as Michael pushed his plate away, frustration etched on his features. All her hopes seemed to cling to the fragile thread of connection that could be severed with just one more harsh word. "What now?" Alice stared at Michael, her pulse quickening as the tension swelled in her chest. The clatter of utensils fell silent, replaced by a smothering atmosphere thick with unsaid sentiments. She braced herself for a response, fighting against the urge to retreat into the cocoon of her old routines, where doubts couldn't reach her. The years of silence pressed hard against her, leaving her grappling for anything that could prompt a dialogue. "Michael," she began, her voice wavering. She could see the weariness etched across his features. They were strangers in this familiar space, and she needed to bridge the gap that long gestation of resentment had created. "I wanted to make something special tonight. I thought we could reconnect a little." He glanced at the food before him, his expression hard to read. The skills she had honed while whipping up family dinners for years suddenly felt impotent, like ancient knowledge that had abandoned her in her time of need. What was it that Evelyn had said? Food should carry meaning, stories, connections. But with Michael's narrowed eyes, she feared she had failed to evoke that meaning. As he turned his gaze toward her, a flicker of sorrow crossed his face. Mom, I know you wanted this to be special, but you seem lost. Do you even know what I like to eat anymore? The question hung in the air, a chilling reminder of the rift they both tried to ignore. Things have changed, she said, her throat tightening. But I thought if I cooked something heartfelt, maybe I could remind us of the good times. The crack in her voice betrayed her, and she hurried forward, desperate to reclaim the moment. This cookbook has always been our family's treasure. Each recipe holds a memory. Don't you remember Grandma's famous pot roast? Or the way I made your favorite chocolate cake for your birthday? A shadow crossed his face, the enthusiasm draining from his features. What makes you think that just cooking something from our past is going to fix everything? It's not about the food. The words struck her with the weight of reality, each syllable resonating with her fear of inability. Determined, she clutched the edges of the table, drawing strength from the old wood beneath her fingers. Then let me learn. Let us create something new together, she proposed, an ember of hope igniting within her. I can try to understand your tastes, the things you crave now. Michael hesitated, the fight within him clashing with a flicker of willingness. I don't know, Mom. It's not just about the food, it's about the connection. He faltered and looked down at his plate as if it held the answers to the universe. A flood of realizations washed over her. The vast separation of their worlds was not merely built on cooking, but on experiencing life apart. Could she truly reinvent her role in his life? Resolute, she invited him to join her in the kitchen tomorrow, a gesture that meant stepping into her old vulnerability once more, but also embracing the possibility of progress. I want to learn. If you take my hand, maybe we can build something that doesn't feel like dragging a boulder uphill. For the first time, she caught a glimpse of uncertainty weaving into his guarded demeanor, a subtle invitation to inch closer to reconciliation. In that moment, Alice recognized her own strength anew. She had spent years trying to recall the past, but now realized that change required more than yearning. It demanded action, vulnerability, and open dialogues. She finally offered him more than a meal, she offered him trust. A brief silence settled before Michael nodded, his rigid shoulders easing ever so slightly. Okay, we can try that, he acquiesced, yet the shadows still danced in his eyes, hinting at a deeper struggle. As Alice began to envision what tomorrow's cooking session would entail, a fusion of their two worlds, the tension crept back, but this time it felt different. This time, it felt like forging a new path, not just a frail thread connecting the past, but potential threads connecting them in the present. What awaited them in that kitchen the next day? Would their shared efforts lead to a genuine connection, or would their unfinished conversations come crashing back to the surface, demanding to be addressed first? Alice steeled herself for the journey ahead, its potential both frightening and exhilarating. The time for rediscovery was at hand, but with every new step came the specters of doubt lingering like guests at an unwelcome party. Would this be the turning point in their strained relationship, or just another broken promise of a hopeful future? Alice awoke with a sense of unease rippling through her, a weight that sat heavy on her chest. Today was the day she would step into unfamiliar territory, pulling Michael into a space where vulnerability and learning would intertwine, forging something new from the remnants of their past. She had spent sleepless hours revisiting her intentions. Could she truly become the person he needed now, not just the mother he remembered? In the kitchen, sunlight spilled through the window, casting streaks of warmth across the countertops. Every corner of this space held memories, each associated with cherished traditions, a mix of ingredients and laughter shared over a simmering pot. Yet, that warmth felt fragile today as she reached for the cookbook that had once been her guide. The pages felt heavy, like the years of silent frustration and disconnection. She flipped through the vibrant photos, each recipe a time capsule. But instead of nostalgia, a wave of uncertainty washed over her. What if she got it wrong? What if her attempts at bridging the gap only pushed him further away? She forced the inner dialogue to hush, allowing it to evolve into a mantra. I will embrace today. I will learn today. At precisely 5 o'clock, the door creaked open. Michael entered, tentative yet curious. He tossed his bag down, his gaze sliding across the familiar kitchen setting, pausing slightly at the countertop cluttered with fresh ingredients. "What do we make?" he asked, a tone of guarded intrigue softening the defensiveness in his voice. Alice cleared her throat, her mind racing through her intentions. "I thought we could create something from scratch," she began, suddenly realizing how intimidating that prospect sounded. "Let us explore flavors together. What do you enjoy now?" He frowned, the vulnerability flickering in his eyes betraying his guarded stance. "I don't know what I like anymore, Mom. Everything feels stuck." Her heart dropped. Stuck. The word echoed the very feelings she had wrestled with for years. It was time to confront this reality. "What if we start with something simple?" she proposed, casting aside the path of perfect execution. "Let us try a stir-fry. We can mix and match flavors. But I need your input. What do you enjoy? Savory? Spicy? Sweet?" Tentatively, he leaned over the counter, inspecting the fresh vegetables. "Maybe some spice would be good," he admitted, surprised by the rush of enthusiasm for his own suggestion. "Good. Then let us start there. What do you think about these peppers? They pack a punch." She pointed, hoping to coax him into sharing his thoughts on the flavors he craved. His face lit up momentarily, but shadows still danced in his features. They began chopping and stirring, Alice guiding him along the way while ensuring to prompt him for decisions. Gradually, a rhythm emerged, accented with laughter over accidental spills, and the tension melting slightly with each shared quirk. Despite the initial hesitation, Michael started to take ownership of the task, experimenting with the balance of spices as if each sprinkle was a note in a song they were composing together. But as the fragrance enveloped the kitchen, Alice's thoughts turned inward. These small victories felt monumental but precarious. The specter of their unresolved conflicts loomed closer. Could one meal be the catalyst for everything to change, or was it but a fleeting instance of false hope? In the midst of their culinary dance, Michael's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and the light in his eyes dimmed, a flicker of the earlier shadows returning. "I have to take this," he muttered, stepping away, leaving Alice alone once more. As she stood over their concoction, the simmering aroma of their work enveloped her. The dish had come together beautifully, yet she felt the distance creeping back, questions that refused to dissipate wrapped around her mind. Was this new interaction simply another layer obscuring deeper issues? When Michael reemerged, the weight of their earlier conversation awaited unaddressed, like an unsolved puzzle lingering on the counter. "Are we really going to keep doing this? Or is there something we need to talk about?" she ventured, vulnerable once more. His eyes met hers, a fleeting moment where all the unsaid words hung palpably between them. The time for tackling their buried sentiments felt ripe. The meal was only a part of the journey, a stepping stone to unearth the depths of what lay beneath the surface. Suddenly, the air was thick with anticipation as both of them confronted the pivotal decision. Would they peel away the layers and face the truth that could either liberate or fracture them further? As Michael considered her question, uncertainty loomed. The moment felt electric, the chance for authentic connection or veiled discourse still pressed against their hearts. Would they emerge from the kitchen transformed, or would the struggle deepen as the unresolved shadows beckoned them to stay entangled within their past? The silence hung in the air, thick with unspoken fears and hopes. Michael shifted, his body language betraying a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Alice dared to let herself feel this moment, hanging on to the fragile thread of connection they had momentarily spun through cooking. What might happen if they ventured beyond the safety of surface conversation? "Michael," she urged softly, "what do you think we're really keeping from each other? I want to understand." He crossed his arms defensively, backing away from the intimacy she was attempting to cultivate. "It's complicated, Mom." His gaze faltered, landing briefly on the half-prepared dish before darting to the windows, as if seeking an escape. "Complicated often means there's something worth uncovering," she replied, her voice steady yet softened by genuine curiosity. "You don't have to shield me. I can handle the truth." The tension across his features narrowed, leaving nothing but raw conflict. "What if the truth is that I don't feel like I know you anymore?" he blurted out suddenly. The vulnerability in his statement turned the air sharp with honesty. Alice felt the weight of those words sink into her stomach, churning like the ingredients in their wok. She had lived with that very fear, a truth both painful and humiliating. How had they reached this point? I felt that way too, she admitted quietly. But I want to change that. I want us to know each other in a way we haven't in a long time. With a furrowed brow, he looked back at the stovetop, chips of doubt skimming over his features. How? It starts with embracing the discomfort, I think, she replied, allowing the new territory of vulnerability to unfold freely. Just like how we're experimenting here with flavors, trying new things, blending, learning to create together instead of just existing in the echo of the past. He paused, considering the metaphor while glancing at the colorful vegetables, vibrant and ready for exploration. You really think we can, though? Yes, she confirmed, the warmth of her assurance merging with a burgeoning resolve. I believe if we take it one step at a time, we can rediscover what matters. Each time we come together like this, let it mean something more. Michael nodded, tentatively leaning in, reigniting their earlier enthusiasm like stepping into sunlight after a storm. Okay, let us keep cooking. But let us be real, too. After all, if we're making a stir-fry, I guess we have to chop up the big pieces. Exactly, Alice said, a flicker of hope igniting within her. Let us tackle the biggest pieces. Start with what's getting in the way, the things we kept hidden. The sizzling of their stir-fry filled the kitchen, a substantive background score, as the air grew warmer between them. They began passing each other the ingredients in unspoken agreement to confront their truths while conjuring something delicious. Alice's heart raced in anticipation of what revelations might surface. Would their discussions hinge on awkwardness, or might there be laughter tangled within the threads of their candor? With each chop of the knife, Michael shared snippets of his struggles, how alone he felt at school, perceptions he wrestled with, layers of society's expectations pressuring him from all angles. Alice reciprocated, revealing feelings of inadequacy, of missing moments she could have embraced as a mother. As they shared realizations, the act of cooking became metaphorical, each stir of the mixture intensifying their dialogue. Yet uncertainty lurked just beneath the pattern they were weaving. Would these embers they were stoking flicker brightly enough to illuminate their path forward, or would the shadows draw them back into silence again? As they plated their creation, a moment of triumph bloomed, both culinary and emotional. Michael's expression softened as he looked at the vibrant dish before them. This looks good, he remarked quietly, a smile beginning to crest his lips. Just as Alice was about to respond, her phone buzzed insistently on the counter, disrupting the fragile space they had begun to forge. She shot a glance at the screen. An unrecognized number glared back at her, sending unease rippling through the moment they had managed to create. Sorry, I should take this, she said, lifting the device with reluctance. But as she turned away, she wondered if this call might shift the narrative they had dared to write. The half-formed connection still hung in the air, and she couldn't shake the question, could their moment of breakthrough withstand the uncertainties rearing their heads just as another potential shift approached? Maybe we won't have all the answers, she returned to Michael after the call ended, finding him gazing back with curiosity and concern. But we can figure it out together, right? The shadows still loomed at the edges of their growing bond, invitations to retreat lingering in every glance. What awaited them on this evolving path? And would they have the strength to navigate whatever challenges lay ahead as new revelations loomed? Alice lowered her phone, still feeling the lingering vibrations of the unexpected call. Her heart pounded, not just from the conversation she had just engaged in, but from the prospect of confronting what had been reshaped in her relationship with Michael. She returned her gaze to him, and their eyes locked briefly, each searching the other's for reassurance. Who was it? Michael asked, the warmth of their earlier connection still evident in his tone, but now tinged with curiosity. A telemarketer, she replied, forcing a lightness into her voice that did not entirely match her feelings. Nothing important. Silence reestablished itself, but this time it felt different, more like a stage set for what was to come. They had opened the door to conversation together. The interruption was unwelcome, but perhaps a necessary reminder of how many distractions existed in their lives, pulling them away from authenticity. Let's focus on our dish, she suggested, moving closer to the counter where their creation awaited. It's just us for now. Michael stepped in beside her, his posture slightly more relaxed, though she sensed the weight of deeper thoughts hovering under the surface. They served the stir-fry, the colors vibrant against the stark white plates. Yet as they sat down, Alice couldn't shake the instinct to prod deeper into Michael's world. She needed to know if they could truly build on their fragile foundation, or if this moment would slip away. "You mentioned feeling alone at school," she began cautiously after they took their first bites. "What makes it feel that way?" He mulled over her words, chewing slowly as he regarded her. "It's just, I feel like I don't fit in. Everyone seems to have their own groups and interests, and I'm just there." His voice cracked, revealing rawness nestled within. "I don't really connect with anyone, and honestly, it feels exhausting trying to pretend." Alice's heart ached at his admission. She had sensed a disconnect for some time, but hearing it voiced so plainly hit deeper. "I wish I had known. I've been consumed with my own struggles, thinking I was the only one feeling lost," she acknowledged, shifting her thoughts into a space of mutual vulnerability. "Like what?" Michael asked, his tone inquisitive but cautious, as if drawing a line in the sand. "I feel like I've let our family down. My expectations never seem to line up with reality," she confessed. "I focused so hard on work and the future that I missed so many small moments with you. I don't want to do that anymore." He met her gaze, their connection fragile yet real. "You don't have to apologize. It's just how life gets, you know." His openness urged Alice to continue pushing the conversation further. "Do you ever feel like you have to change who you are to fit in? Like wearing a mask to get through each day?" Michael sighed, the tension in his shoulders visibly curling like steam escaping the wok. "All the time. I don't want to be someone I'm not, but I'm scared to show people me." "That's the first step, you know," Alice proposed, understanding that you don't have to be perfect or something else. It's okay to be authentic, even if it means facing rejection. He leaned back slightly, as if considering the enormity of her statement. Alice sensed the moment teetering between healing and the risk of falling back into old patterns of avoidance. But what if being real only pushes people further away? He pondered. "Then we'll face it together," Alice responded, laying a hand on his. "I'm still learning myself. It's a process." They exchanged a quiet determination, fortifying their relationship amidst the chaos of doubts swirling around them. Yet, as the conversation took a positive turn, the outside world stubbornly pressed against their bubble. Alice's phone buzzed again on the counter, drawing their eyes reluctantly to it. The name flashing on the screen was unmistakable, an old friend from work, the last person she expected to hear from right now. Anxiety tightened around her ribs. Could this call be another distraction, potentially unraveling the progress they had made? "Are you going to get it?" Michael asked, breaking the tense silence, eyes glimmering with a mix of curiosity and worry. She hesitated. Would answering it mean abandoning the fragile connection they had started to build? Maybe this one is important. Before she could decide, something deeper began swirling within her, a vital sense that every choice today could open or close doors in unforeseen ways. "Are we really going to allow this to interfere?" she questioned internally, feeling the weight of the decision weigh on her like a heavy blanket. The foundation of their relationship hung suspended in the balance, and quickly she realized that not only their past mattered, but also the choices they made now could shape everything. She took a deep breath, wrestling between professional obligation and personal growth. Would she answer and risk losing a moment that could bring them closer? As she reached for the phone, she suddenly felt unsure of her next move, aware that this call could change everything yet to come. The moment ticked forward, each second heavy with potential, their conversation still unfinished, the connection still fragile. Would they take the next step together or let external forces dictate their journey? The choice lay firmly in her hands. Alice's hand hovered over her phone, uncertainty curling within her like a vine tightening around a trunk. The screen pulsed with urgency, but the conversation with Michael remained suspended in time. She could hear the rhythm of her heart echoing loudly in the silence, drowning out everything else. "It's probably work-related," she murmured, more to herself than to Michael. The fabric of their conversation felt delicate, like an intricate web, and she feared introducing a distraction that might lead to its unraveling. Michael's eyes narrowed slightly, betraying his concern. "But is that really what you want to focus on now?" His question pierced through her hesitation. Alice considered it carefully, reflecting on her recent drive to prioritize her personal relationships over professional obligations. All too often, work had swallowed her whole, turning her time with those she loved into hurried, fractured moments snatched between tasks. She began, but the phone rang again, louder this time, demanding her attention. In that moment, standing at a crossroads, she felt the weight of her choices bearing down on her. "I'll be right back," she finally declared, cutting through the silence. Michael watched, a mix of understanding and disappointment flashing across his features as she turned to answer the call. "Hey, it's been a while." The familiar voice chimed, the warmth palpable even from a distance. But as Alice listened, the excitement began to evaporate. It was Jill, an old colleague from work, pitching an opportunity that offered sweet temptation a chance to move up the ladder and break free from the mundane. Alice's pulse quickened. She had longed for a way to validate herself in her career, and standing at the edge of yet another potential professional distraction, she felt her old ambitions stir to life again. How easy would it be to let this moment derail her efforts to build something more meaningful on a personal level? "Alice, you still there?" Jill's voice buzzed through the line, shaking Alice from her thoughts. "Yeah, I'm here," she replied, trying to summon enthusiasm. "What's this opportunity?" As Jill detailed the proposition, a strong temptation clung to Alice. This path promised not only recognition, but also a frantic return to the chaotic sense of purpose she had relied on for so long. Yet it whispered sinister caution. She recalled the nights of stress and the days of missing milestones with Michael. "Listen, I need to think about it," Alice interjected, cutting Jill off mid-sentence. The decision felt heavier than her words could articulate, caught between urgency and the delicate threads of connection with Michael. "Can I call you back?" "Sure. But don't take too long, it's a great chance." Alice ended the call, her stomach churning as a mix of guilt and relief washed over her. When she turned back, Michael's expression conveyed unspoken questions. The air held a stillness that seemed rife with potential heartbreak. "I'm sorry about that," she said, moving back toward him, but this time there was something different in her approach. "I honestly didn't think I'd hear from her." "Does that mean you're considering it?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with an edge of vulnerability. "It's tempting, Michael," she confessed, the tension in her chest growing taut. "But I don't want to keep letting professional aspirations dictate my life or come between us." "Then why let it?" His words held a challenge, urging her to confront her own motivations. Alice was struck by how deeply this choice resonated, not just for her own growth, but for how it could hurt or heal the foundation they were trying to build. "I need to learn to prioritize what matters more," she stated, her voice firm, as determination surged. Michael smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes, a reflection of the unease still settling between them. "That's what you said before, right? The small moments?" Alice took a deep breath, recognizing the truth laced within his words. The stakes had never felt higher. "Maybe," she faltered, "maybe I don't just need to choose what I want. I need to choose who I want to be." The resolve to reshape her identity began to crystallize into something more profound. With that clarity came courage. "Michael, let us not allow our past decisions to dictate our future. I want to be authentic, with myself," she reiterated. The electrifying depth of her commitment shocked her as soon as it left her mouth. Yet, glaring right at her was the undeniable reality that this journey would not come without sacrifice. The choices ahead were daunting, and she sensed that the call for professional validation held just as much power over her life as her relationship with Michael. "I want us to be genuine," she continued, "but there's a fear that is holding me tight. Let us confront it together. We'll discover what's really important." Michael nodded, a flicker of hope igniting amidst the shadows of uncertainty that had settled nearby. As they faced each other, both were engulfed in the weight of their shared reality, the future uncertain, but a shared desire to embrace authenticity stronger than the fear that threatened to overwhelm them. Just as they began to find equilibrium, Alice's heart plummeted at the thought of her merits competing against her personal life, but there was no time to dwell. Another buzz from her phone sliced through the air, a notification lighting the screen. This one wasn't Jill. A message from her boss flashed before her eyes, the words trailing off with professional urgency. What fresh dilemma awaited her? And how would that choice shape their delicate journey forward? The moment held all the power to make or break what they were beginning to build. Alice's heart raced as she stared at her phone, a familiar knot of anxiety clenching her stomach. The message from her boss felt like an invasive shadow, creeping into the sanctuary she had been attempting to create with Michael. "We need to discuss an important project ASAP. Can you meet tomorrow?" Each word seemed to pulse with significance, beckoning her back into the professional chaos she had fought so hard to sidestep. She closed her eyes for a moment, tuning out the digital world shrouded in political goals, deadlines, and expectations of perfection. Just when she thought her resolve was toughening, doubt reeled her back. "Alice." Michael's voice was soft yet filled with the inquiry she had dreaded. "What does it say?" With a deep breath, she broke the news, watching his brow furrow as she spoke. "It's my boss. He wants to meet about a project." Alice noticed how his expression shifted, the glimmer of hope dimming as fear flickered to life. "What time?" Michael asked carefully after a pause, seemingly weighing the implications of her work commitments against their tentative time together. "They want to meet tomorrow afternoon," she replied, her voice barely rising above a whisper. She took a self-aware step back, perhaps because she felt the need to defend her territory. "It's Wednesday. I told you we'd be in San Francisco by Friday." Michael surveyed her face. It was a mirror of conflict. "And you'll still go to this meeting?" "I don't have a choice," she snapped, frustration surfacing. The undercurrents of pressure from work conspired with her desire for more peace, and they didn't belong in the same airspace. "Is it really more important than spending time together?" Michael asked, an edge of hurt lacing through his tone. "Why does this always happen when we're trying to connect?" The accusation struck hard, and Alice recoiled, the defensive wall she had only just begun to dismantle threatening to reassemble itself. "It's not perpetual, Michael," she snapped defensively. "You know how these projects are. I didn't set the schedule. It feels like I can't escape. And yet you still want to take this call," he probed, his tone demanding her full attention. "You're letting it rule you again." His words thudded against her mind, silence enveloping them. Yes, she could self-sabotage. Yes, work had tangled itself deeply in her life patterns. But even in that moment, she recognized an undeniable truth: the external conflict mirrored an internal one. "Look," Alice started, collecting her thoughts with effort. "I want this. I want to create space for us." But the words felt bumpy as they rolled off her tongue. "I suppose I'm afraid. Afraid of missing an opportunity that might help validate me professionally, especially after so long feeling invisible." "Then why is validation from your job more important than connecting with me?" Michael's gaze bore into her, and she could feel the weight of his disappointment settle even heavier on her heart. She wanted to answer, to proclaim that validation wasn't everything, but the truth felt more ambiguous. Recognition had always been integral to her identity. How could she just let it go? "I need to put myself out there, Michael. If I don't, I might lose this chance. Or lose sight of you," he interjected, his voice tense as if he bore the weight of an unsaid truth that threatened to unravel everything. That struck a nerve. Alice's eyes sagged under the burden of his words. Through the haze of external pressures, she knew she had to confront the risk within herself. "I can evaluate what's best for me," she whispered, her mind racing between fear and determination. The internal conflict screamed at her as she tried to assemble a fresh narrative between external validation and internal fulfillment. But she recognized an emotion she hadn't fully acknowledged before, a hunger to present a more authentic Alice both personally and professionally. Choosing one wouldn't negate the other. It meant forging a new identity that encompassed the whole of her desires, including the things she had once brushed aside. "What if we can find a balance?" she asked, her voice steadier now. "What if you support me in this? Not as the person I was trying to be at work, but as someone who needs this." Michael absorbed her words in silence, contemplating the fragile thread of hope she had woven. "I just don't want to watch you lose yourself again," he finally replied, his voice barely above a murmur. Alice felt a flicker of warmth rise within her. "It won't be like that. I promise. I'll strive for authenticity, just give me the space to figure this out. To be the Alice who wants to grow, but also to connect with you." They stood in the weight of her revelation, tethered together by the unvoiced commitment to seek a middle ground across the uncharted territory of their relationship. But just as relief began to wash over them, A second notification chimed from her phone. The realization that this hurdle had only just begun blared loudly in her mind. With one glance, Alice saw a second message, this time from Jill. The words seemed to pulse with urgency. Just heard from HR. They're looking for someone to lead the new initiative. Let me know your thoughts soon. As the weight of her aspirations tugged at her again, Alice felt an impending truth sink in. Every step forward now would come with its challenges. Would she have the strength to navigate these waters without sinking? The question lay heavy in the air, a whisper of uncertainty battling against her burgeoning resolve as she faced the unknown beyond the next day. Alice's mind raced as she stared down at her phone, the second message from Jill buzzing like a relentless insect determined to draw her attention back to the chaos she sought to escape. Now, she faced not just the weight of one critical meeting the following day, but the looming expectation of leading a new initiative, a chance that could elevate her status at work and, paradoxically, trap her in the very validation she sought to break free from. Taking a deep breath, she momentarily grounded herself, reminding herself of the clarity she had just begun to forge. The reflection on authenticity tugged at her. Could she navigate this without losing grasp of who she wanted to become? Alice. Michael's soft voice broke her reverie, grounding her despite its cautious tone. What are you thinking? I'm just processing, she murmured, striving for a calm that felt elusive amid the storm brewing inside. Processing what? His concern birthed an urge in her to confide the myriad of entangled emotions rattling in her mind. This project leading it could be career-defining, Michael, she admitted, the words tasting bittersweet. But it also feels overwhelming. I need to prove I can handle these responsibilities, especially after being sidelined for so long. Michael leaned back, clearly wrestling with the implications of her admission. What is the point of proving anything if you're not being true to yourself while you do it? His question was haunting, exposing the unsettled truth of her struggle. Aren't you the one who said we should strive for balance? She countered, her tone sharper than intended. The defensiveness sprang forth, but it faltered against the sincerity behind his eyes. I am, he replied gently. But do you really feel balanced in this? It seems like you're letting external pressures dictate your worth. Fingers trembling, Alice tapped the edge of her phone, the screen flickering with endless possibilities. Could she truly balance her aspirations against her personal needs? I thought acceptance from others would validate me, help me feel more visible, she confessed, her voice trailing off. But being visible in the wrong way can overshadow true connections. I don't want to lose what we have. The reality of it all sunk deeply. How many times had she pursued recognition only to discover it led her further away from those she cared about? I just feel like I have to go for it, she concluded, desperation cloaking her thoughts. What if I miss out on this moment? What if I regret not trying? Then try, Michael responded firmly. But don't lose your unique self in the process. You deserve to chase opportunities that nurture who you are, not just feed into a facade of success. The weight of his words settled over her like a warm blanket, one that both soothed and challenged her perspective. What if this was an opportunity to redefine her success, not just the accolades, but the true, fulfilling connections? Maybe that means I can leverage my authenticity at work too, she pondered aloud. If I lead this project, I want to do it in a way that promotes teamwork and genuine communication, not just competitiveness and ambition. Yes, Michael's eyes brightened, igniting hope within her as the realization dawned over them. Both a direct path forward existed that could incorporate both her desire for career growth and the authenticity she craved. All right, Alice said, determination firming her voice. If I take this role, I'll focus on creating an environment where my team feels valued and heard. But amidst the surge of possibility, doubt crept back in. Would her superiors appreciate such a shift in approach? What if they were more focused on results rather than the well-being of the team? Anxiety clawed at the edges of her resolve, reminding her of the risks involved in challenging the status quo. Just as a sliver of optimism filled her, her phone buzzed again, pulling her steadfast attention. A third message flashed. Don't forget the budget review this Friday. Be prepared to justify every line item. Alice felt the connection between chaos and expectation tighten, each message pulling her in different directions. Could she navigate these complexities without losing the hard-won connections she had just begun to treasure? As tension pulsed through her veins, she realized the pivotal moment had arrived. Balancing these converging paths might demand taking bold risks, both personally and professionally. But as she glanced at Michael, the weight of her choices hung heavy, a flip of a coin, deciding whether she continued toward conventional recognition or dared to pave a new route, one rooted in authenticity. Alice did not know which path to take as determination clashed with uncertainty in her heart. Would there be space for the authentic Alice to thrive amidst the looming demands? The air hummed with intensity, the future tugging in different directions as the echo of her heart whispered a simple truth. In choosing authenticity, she might find an avenue that transcended expectations. With everything at stake, she understood that success wasn't solely about achievement, it was about how she could redefine what it meant to truly succeed. As she wrestled with the intertwining possibilities, one thought emerged, stark and resolute. The time had come to face not just her professional aspirations, but the depths of her own identity. Would she rise to the challenge and embrace the new path ahead? Alice woke the next morning to a muted gray light spilling through her curtains, a stark contrast to the whirlwind of thoughts spiraling in her head. Last night's conversation with Michael clung to her mind, igniting both hope and fear. Every avenue she could pursue felt strewn with invisible landmines, each step forward tantalizing yet terrifying. After a hurried breakfast, she opened her laptop, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. The budget review loomed over her like a dark cloud, threatening to rain on her aspirations. The first step in her new role was not just to establish a welcoming atmosphere, but to justify every penny in the budget. The thought tightened her stomach. Could transparency and collaboration coexist with the inherently cutthroat nature of the corporate world? Diving into the spreadsheets, she meticulously combed through every line item, forcing her excitement about team dynamics aside as the numbers assigned themselves to her mind. With each expenditure, she conquered her anxiety by reminding herself of her intentions. The new project would flourish not just on budgetary success, but on the foundation of authentic dialogue and shared goals. That sliver of clarity shone through the spreadsheets, offering a momentary escape from self-doubt. Her phone buzzed again, snapping her back into reality. It was a message from Jill, the colleague whose ambitions often clashed with her own. "Can you send me your budget notes? Let us align before the review," it read. Even the request felt like a veiled challenge, a reminder that cooperation in a competitive field was a delicate dance. Alice hesitated. She wanted to foster an environment where everyone contributed, yet past experiences whispered caution in her ear. Sharing her insights could dilute her authority, risking the very authenticity she had resolved to uphold. The tension within her grew, the stakes feeling extravagantly high. Could she lead without sacrificing her own voice? After a moment's contemplation, she crafted a response that was both collaborative and firm. "I'm happy to share perspectives this morning. However, I'd love to discuss how we frame our initiative in line with transparent teamwork as well." Sending the message felt like a tentative step along a narrow path, yet the act of standing firm sent ripples through her core. She was not just giving in to the expected, a lingering frustration slowly disbanding with this ever-so-small act of self-assertion. As the clock ticked toward the meeting, Alice couldn't shake the feeling of impending confrontation. Each tick sounded like a question. Would she emerge intimidated or empowered? The moment arrived, and as Alice walked into the conference room, she took a deep breath, allowing the air to fill her lungs with courage. Her colleagues buzzed with nervous energy, their whispered conversations a sharp reminder of the stakes. She spotted Michael seated near the front, offering her an encouraging nod, and that small gesture fortified her resolve. As the meeting commenced, a mix of excitement and trepidation surged within her. Tensions simmered as financial metrics consumed the discussion, overshadowing the human element she yearned to emphasize. With every query about figures, Alice's resolve strengthened. It was no longer an abstract notion. This was a call to action, a moment to challenge the norm. When the floor opened for her to present her ideas, air filled with expectation. Would they welcome her approach? The weight of uncertainty pressed against her chest, yet the fire of possibilities ignited her spirit. She spoke to the numbers, to her colleagues, and most importantly, to the authenticity she was determined to embody. The room erupted in questions, some challenging, forcing her to defend her vision, but she did so with an ease that surprised even herself. Just as her vision began to gain traction, a voice cut through a senior leader seated at the far end, arms crossed, and skepticism etched across his features. "But Alice," he challenged, "how do you ensure this focus on teamwork translates to actual results? The numbers must speak louder than sentiment." Heart racing, Alice sensed the tension spiking. This was the moment. Would she crumble under the scrutiny or rise to confront this challenge? How do we measure success if the connections between us fail? Her voice resonated with conviction, surprising her own ears. Numbers can only tell half the story. The room fell silent, the air crackling with anticipation. Would this be the turning point she had sought, or merely the beginning of a confrontation she wasn't yet prepared to face? With every determined heartbeat, she realized the journey was only just beginning. As she glanced around to gauge their reactions, the door swung open, and another colleague entered, misplacing the focus yet again. Tension danced back into the atmosphere, and Alice felt her footing tremble once more. Would she be able to claim her voice amidst the swirling chaos? Each moment bore the weight of her identity, pushing her closer to a profound truth. The time to stand firm in her authenticity had truly arrived. But what would be the cost of speaking out? Alice stood firm, her heart pounding as the debate in the conference room swirled around her. The unexpected interruption had thrown her for a loop, but it also ignited a fierce determination within. She was not just in a workplace. She was building a whole new foundation for herself, one that demanded not just competence but authenticity. In that moment, she realized the choice had always been hers to make. Would she allow external pressures and the expectations of her colleagues to deter her from her emerging path? Would she capitulate to the fear of judgment and retreat into silence? Or would she rise and assert her new vision for success? Taking a deep breath, Alice leaned forward, regaining control of the room. "I understand that results are important," she addressed the senior leader directly, her voice unwavering. "But success can't be merely numerical. It needs to connect to our people, our vision. If we prioritize genuine collaboration and communication, the numbers will come. We can cultivate a culture that not only performs, but thrives." A heavy silence hung in the air, the weight of her words resonating amidst the once chaotic discussions. The room was not just watching, they were listening, and for the first time, Alice felt like she was not just part of the conversation but a key voice in it. Michael, seated at the front, reflected pride in his eyes, bolstering her resolve while fueled by her inner conviction. She saw glimmers of acknowledgement stirred in her colleagues. It seemed that perhaps, just perhaps, they were ready for change too. The senior leader's brow furrowed as he processed her assertion. "And how do you plan to implement this new strategy within the tight deadlines we face? How can you balance this idealism with the reality of corporate targets?" "Let us explore it together," Alice responded, her voice steady and confident. "I propose task forces focused on fostering cross-departmental collaboration. We can set common goals that align creativity with accountability. This won't just be my initiative, but one that benefits all of us." The room erupted in murmurs of agreement, questions cascading from her colleagues as they engaged with the new proposal. Rather than retracting under scrutiny, Alice was drawing them in, and the fear that once gripped her heart began to dissipate, replaced by an exhilarating surge of energy. As the meeting progressed, Alice transformed trepidation into tangible dialogue. She urged them to push boundaries, to view their metrics not as shackles, but as springboards toward genuine collaboration. Her passionate explanation clearly resonated, stirring moods toward excitement rather than fear. By the end of the meeting, energy crackled in the air, marking a palpable shift. They had laid the groundwork for a new initiative rooted in both accountability and authenticity, setting a course toward a future worth pursuing. As everyone filed out of the room, Alice felt a weight lift from her chest. She had stepped into a new skin, one that was no longer defined solely by professional achievements or external validations. She had proven to herself and to her colleagues that her authenticity had a place in the corporate world, and it could lead to great success. Later that day, as she stepped out of the building and into the bright sunlight, a feeling of profound satisfaction washed over her. She had forged a new path, one that celebrated connection over mere accomplishment. And as she headed home, she thought of Michael, the warmth of the day echoing the connection they had nurtured together. No longer was she stepping into her home consumed by the weight of her professional identity. She was stepping into a space that also embraced vulnerability, held trust, and marked the beginning of a new chapter. As she walked in, Michael met her gaze. "You did it, Mom," he said softly, pride laced through his words. She felt the connection they had built through shared experience, a bond that no longer felt tenuous, but rather rooted in understanding and growth. This was what she had sought after all, a relationship anchored in authenticity and communication. Alice realized then that personal achievement wasn't confined to career success. It was about being true to oneself, living with intention, and embracing fearless growth. She had conquered her inner landscapes, taking with her a renewed sense of purpose and connection, an accomplishment that, above everything, felt profoundly fulfilling. This moment marked her transformation not just as an employee or a mother, but finally as Alice, the authentic being she had always aspired to be, ready to take on new challenges without sacrificing who she was. So, if you are moved by Alice's journey of discovery and want to see more transformative tales that inspire personal growth, you need to subscribe now, because this is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure that these life-changing stories reach others who can benefit. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion. Your thoughts matter to us. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see and understand the importance of authenticity in their lives. Help them embark on their own journeys toward personal fulfillment.